I'm proud of Scotland's commitment to becoming a net zero nation by 2045. Reducing harmful emissions is vital to meeting our targets and protecting the environment for future generations. Doing this in a fair and just way is key to the transition and ensuring we keep people at the heart of all we do. There is a significant role for the whole of Scottish society to play in supporting the transformational change needed. We all need to change the way we live to tackle climate change. For example, we need to walk and cycle more and use the car less. Taking action within our communities is key to shape the future we want and create the communities we wish to live in. That's why it's so inspiring to see the incredible projects being delivered by communities in the North East. The SHMU Hub is one of our first regional climate action hubs. The hub is raising awareness of the climate emergency, supporting communities to reduce emissions and adapt to the impacts of climate change and to tackle biodiversity loss. It's bringing communities together, sharing, learning and stimulating further action. I'm delighted to see the progress the hub has made to date and the opportunities this gives to shine a light on the incredible community activity going on. Communities are uniquely placed to play a crucial role in shaping and driving forward climate action. Tackling climate change isn't always obvious. It's also about equality and fairness. It's about reducing poverty. It's about supporting people's health and well-being. That's reflected in the wealth of activity being showcased here. Projects being delivered by local community groups and volunteers passionate about caring for local people and places. Tackling the climate crisis requires all of us at every level to get involved. We can all make a difference. So whether you're thinking about energy efficiency measures, tree planting, repair and reuse, reducing waste or community growing, you'll find inspiration here.
Hi, I'm Alison Stewart, manager of SHMU Hub, and I'm delighted to be here to introduce you to some amazing local, inspirational community climate action projects from Aberdeen City and Aberdeenshire. Taking action is empowering. It builds not just communities but confidence and skills, and enables us not just to keep our world livable but to build a better world. When we talk about a just transition to net zero, it's difficult to know what that means and how we can be involved in that process. The projects you're about to see can help with that understanding. It is a matter of not just thinking about changing our behaviour to reduce carbon emissions and live sustainably, but about creating the world and community that we want to live in. It's a fantastic opportunity, and the world that we want to live in is one that's more equal, inclusive and interconnected with each other and nature. My vision of a better community is one where we scoot, we walk, we bike to our local shops, schools, health centres and community co-working space. It's one where we have local food growing. We have repair and make stations. We have places where people can really connect together. We have energy that's used, that's created in the local community where the profits come back into it. And we have a library of everything, so we don't have to buy lots of stuff, but we can pick up that wheelbarrow, that tool, that mixer, that tent, that we don't need that often. And it's where nature is everywhere. And you know, it's not a utopia that we can't get. In fact, right here and now, there are communities for each one of those examples in the northeast of Scotland that are doing it. So here are some amazing examples of what SHMU members are already doing in their communities right now. We hope that they inspire and motivate you to take action within your own community on community climate action ideas and projects, or simply to make your community group and organisation more sustainable. And we're here to help you, your regional community climate action hub, which in Aberdeen City and Shire is SHMU Hub. Thank you.
Professor Tavis Potts. I'm Chair of Sustainable Development, and recently I've just become the Dean for Environmental Sustainability at the university. So we've worked really closely with NESCAN over the past, including when they were first set up recently, but before that as well for Aberdeen Climate Action. But we've worked with them on a project which is about how we empower communities for a just transition in the northeast of Scotland. And that project went through 3 different phases where we engaged with a whole range of community groups about their vision for net zero and how to get there in the northeast, what the issues are that were important to communities, and then how we could collectively and working hand in glove with NESCAN to support them on that journey. And so we're now at that point now where we've done that work, and we're now looking at the next steps going forward. One of the key things we've found that communities already have a really good understanding of what net zero means to them. And really what the challenge was is how we actually support and empower and build the capacity of communities to deliver on this vision. For example, we need to really bring out what the community voice is, and so we're working with NESCAN, for example, on developing a series of climate assemblies in the region, because we really feel that it's those voices of the community, particularly at the local level or the village or the community level, that are critically important in this debate. That's one thing we found. Another thing we found was that the debates over the future of the northeast and Scotland in general were very heavily dominated by the energy industry. We really need to find and empower those community voices to what their vision is, what the opportunities are for them in net zero, whether this is green jobs, whether this is beautiful green spaces to live in, whether this is training and skills development across the economy, not just in, but including also the energy industry. The third thing that we found was that we really need to invest in developing the capabilities and the skills of communities. This is whether it's through employment, training, investment and infrastructure, so communities can actually own and develop the infrastructure that they need to get to net zero. And we see NESCAN as critical in every step of this process to get there.
My name is Kevin Watt. I am a volunteer with Aberdeen Climate Action, and I help Aberdeen Climate Action organise things called the Climate Cafes. The Climate Cafes exist to inspire people to find their own sustainable, renewable, low impact lifestyle in terms of climate action. We put on events that cover all types of subjects. Things like using the law to defend the climate, sustainable agriculture, how pensions or investments can help change the world. So we put on all those events. They have speakers, specialist speakers who know their subject matter incredibly well. Right now the climate cafes are being done over Zoom, just because we haven't quite got back up and running from a physical perspective since COVID. We were very keen to keep things going because it's such an important topic just now, to try to make sure that we were continuing to get the message across and help people understand climate action better. If you've got a specific interest in a specific subject, then you can find that talk or that climate cafe on YouTube. So the bigger goal for climate cafes is to inspire the local people to figure out their own way of helping climate change, to help avert the worst case of climate change.
Hello, my name's Teresa Duffy and welcome to St Fittick's Edible Garden here in sunny Torry. The general feel is there's a growing awareness with Torry folk that the impact of the climate and an understanding that, especially the older ones who can remember how important it used to be to grow your own stuff. And what's really interesting is the ages connecting and the young folk that have come up and shared things with the older folk, and that's been really good because some of the older ones aren't fit to do all the digging, and they're saying, oh, this is how this grows, etc. We've had workshops, activities for the kids, we've had things to do with bees and wildlife and pollinators, and the children love that, they just love it. We've had quite a few arts and crafts things, so it is quite basic, it's down to earth. There's a lot of work still needing done, but I think we're beyond the foothold stage, we're getting there. But we're hoping more and more people are beginning to say, it's happening. You know, it's a bit like that film, was it Field of Dreams? Build it and they shall come.
I'm Richard Kye, a Tory resident, lived here for many decades now. I'm a member of Friends of St Fittick's Park, and we're campaigning to stop the beautiful St Fittick's Park being turned into an industrial estate. So the wetlands could be concreted over, and if St Fittick's is rezoned as an industrial site, then in theory, and probably in practice, the whole area could become an industrial estate.
My name is Susan Smith. When the proposed local development plan was developed, there was no meaningful consultation, no consultation at all during that process. Once the plan had come into the public domain, there was a public consultation period, and there were a lot of objections. All those objections were ignored and swept away. So since then there is a master plan being developed by environmental planning consultant Arnside Farah. But there is no firm detail in the master plan still about what's happening in the park, and that actual master plan for the park is on hold till the reporter decides whether or not to uphold the rezoning or not. What are we trying to achieve? I know we are different from the other groups in that we're not doing any of the usual we're not having a project with actions that we're all getting involved with to actually do something, but what we're trying to do is to protect the green space, which we feel is sort of contributing towards trying to do something about climate change to prevent the loss of green space that acts as a carbon sink. Some of us are thinking, a different group is thinking about buying the park, and we know that's a very, very big ask and the bar is very high, but that would then safeguard the park from development in the future, whatever the development is.
Net zero, the future of our planet, the future of our societies, is an inherently political question. It's not something that's neutral or passive, and communities, businesses, governments all have to have dialogue and discussion about getting to that future and charting what they need to have. So we completely support activism in communities to get to that, to articulate what that journey is and what the mission is and what the vision is. So we absolutely support that. We need to have a mix of and support activism and capacity in communities, but also support that with real, visible, practical action. This has to be a democratic, transparent and inclusive process. A just transition really has to share the benefits and the challenges widely. It can't just benefit a certain group of society. So that is an inherently political question, and we support this and we encourage these discussions to have.
I'm George Nivlock. I'm the chairman of Geary District Heat, the company that's been set up to produce a district heat network for the towns of Inverurie, Kintore and Blackburn. District heating is a system that's very popular in Northern Europe, and there's plenty of them in Scotland and UK, but most folk are unaware of what a district heat network is. It's a central source of heat and usually produced by some industrial process, and then the waste heat is taken round the community and underground pipes so people wouldn't see the pipes at all. And the heat is then distributed by that method from a central source. In one way, that the main district heat network will be with a loop of underground pipes, but we are also looking at the potential to extend that to the rural communities with a heat battery network. That is still at a developmental stage, but here's an opportunity for people to think global but act local They can act locally to reduce their own carbon footprint substantially. Heating your home is one of the biggest climate actions that you have, and there's an opportunity here with this project to reduce not only your bills, your energy bills, which are a concern for everyone, but to make a direct impact and a significant impact on your carbon footprint. We are 4 years been going behind the scenes to try and get this started, but now that the project is about to kick off, we need to hear from the community. We need to hear from the younger people who are going to live with this for the next 30, 40 years. We want to hear what their views are. There's an opportunity here as a community-owned project for the community to decide what shape it takes, how it's run, and a number of other aspects. So we are desperately keen to have more young folk on to tell us what they want. You can find out more about this Geary District Heat project by looking on the internet under the website gearydistrictheat.net, and we have a Facebook page, we have Twitter pages, and there are leaflets such as this one here in local libraries and other places round about the community.
SCARF provides services for local authorities, Scottish Government and other funders. We provide in-home advice services, telephone support services, management services with housing programmes, as well as administer crisis grant payments on behalf of funders. David Mackay, Co-Chief Executive of SCARF Scotland. SCARF offers the in-home advice service where we go into a customer's home, we sit down with them, put them at ease, look at their income level they have in the home and how they're using energy to make sure they're maximising their income and claiming all benefits available to them, as well as looking at how they're using the energy in their home to try and maximise their income that they're bringing into the house, which ultimately should reduce their bill and look to remove them from fuel poverty. The concern we have at the moment is because of the increase in fuel bills, it's also taking us to look at other ways to support people. So we access financial aid or financial grants through other suppliers that helps us maximise the household income and allows people not to have to choose to either heat their home or eat. We also provide telephone support for the entire northeast of Scotland. Per annum before the energy crisis, we were looking at around about 15,000 households contacting us each year. Currently with the energy crisis, we anticipate it will be anything up to 40 to 50,000 unique households in the northeast who will contact us this year. When people call us, we look to take them through a home energy check, have a look at their current situation of their property, find out if they qualify for any Scottish Government's grants and schemes, as well as looking at anything else that we can do to maximise the household income or use of energy. We look to refer around about 6,000 to 8,000 households per year to energy efficiency home improvements, and we're extremely happy to engage people in regards to looking to see if they qualify for any programmes that will make their house more habitable. A home improvement project via SCARF could include multiple measures, so we'd look at the house and it would potentially qualify for new central heating system, new radiators, insulation, potentially even front doors or window glazing. That is one element of things. Also with the decarbonisation part of what we do, this may also be a solar PV system, heat pump, or battery storage for solar PV. So we really support people from getting their house to be energy efficient and more efficient, to also look to support people to come off the reliance of natural gas and look at more renewable technologies. So the future for SCARF, there's two elements of things. We're looking at the current situation at the moment in the energy crisis. So we as a charitable organisation look at UK funders and different organisations in the private sector to try and draw as much money into the northeast of Scotland to try and support the households to kind of offset the current situation with their energy bills. That allows us to provide emergency payments and crisis grants to people who are really struggling with the increase in fuel costs. The longer term strategy for SCARF is to work with the households and the local authorities in the northeast of Scotland and Scottish Government to look at how we could support households come off the reliance of oil and gas and look at how we can support them achieve net zero through looking at cheap electricity usage. So for SCARF in the long term, we are looking at supporting the transition to net zero by allowing households not to rely on the current cost of gas, but look at a way we can provide cheap electricity.
I'm Sinclair Lang and I'm a Director of Aberdeen Community Energy and I'm also a trustee for Donside Village Community Charity. So we're standing here at the hydro, which was conceived by tenants in the village here. Originally the scheme was conceived by a social landlord who built this village, a sustainable urban village, but never went ahead and built it. So the residents here and the charity here decided to set up a company and build the hydro themselves. A kind of monumental project to do for a bunch of people who had never done anything like this before. But nonetheless, we pulled together, we brought experts in and we decided to press ahead. So built in 2016, after a lot of wrangling with landowners and with consultants and so on, we switched the scheme on and it's been running ever since. So it's a run-of-river hydro scheme, so it borrows water from the River Don over a short distance and it uses the difference in the height of the river from about 100 metres up to this point here to turn the screw. So it's the weight of the water as it goes over the turbine and the screw that actually turns it and generates electricity. So it's a great wee scheme. It's won a few awards nationally just for how well it's done. So Green Energy Awards and some local awards as well. And I think everyone's really supportive of it and really loves it. We do tours, we do educational visits and volunteering and so on. So it delivers a lot of benefits beyond just reducing emissions or generating renewable electricity.
Jane Fullerton. I'm one of the directors of the scheme and I've been involved since the very beginning. Every single bit of work that you see done on and around this hydro is done by volunteers. All the directors are volunteers. It's a grand title, but we're actually volunteers. So we bought the land through the Scottish Land Fund and we now have a kind of a working title for this area and it's Donside Community Park, and little by little we are improving, we're building paths, we're going to be putting in play equipment. We're just slowly and surely making it into something that people want, and we know it's what people want because part of the Scottish Land Fund application required a really in-depth community consultation. We carried out a huge amount of consultation and we found out what people want, and that's what we're delivering.
Donside Hydro is small in scale but big in profile, so it's really important to raise the profile of climate change and the potential of renewable energy, especially in Aberdeen and this city region. The northeast has a long history of energy expertise, and it's about transitioning that from traditional oil and gas fossil fuels and turning that into what the potential is for the future for our everyday lives, generating clean, renewable, affordable electricity. And there's a massive amount of potential here, both in infrastructure terms, but also in the skills that we have in the northeast of Scotland, and really using those to turn Aberdeen and the region into a centre of excellence for energy transition over the next 20, 50 years. And hopefully we can showcase to the world and export those skills and that technology to other places. So while this scheme is small, the profile is big and it showcases just what can be done differently in terms of energy generation.
My name is Ainhoa. The Secret Garden Society is a society affiliated with the University of Aberdeen, which is in charge of taking care of this community garden on campus, in which we grow our crops sustainably. We don't use fertilizers, we don't use herbicides or pesticides, and we do everything organically. We also try to implement the permaculture principles, so no dig and no till. And we also try to promote sustainability in a way that we also organize upcycling workshops. So we reuse wood to make raised beds, and we also reuse toilet paper rolls, for example, to sow seeds indoors. And we also have a scheme in which we bring our food waste to the garden and we use it to create compost to use in the garden. In the garden we do lots of different activities, and not all of them is growing food. We also do other activities such as picnics or gatherings, just to get the community closer together.
So my name is Ellie. Everyone here is very positive and very helpful. You don't have to know about gardening, you're going to learn about gardening. They're going to show you, they're going to stick with you. You can do simple stuff, you can do complicated stuff, you can go at your own pace, you can keep learning.
It is bigger than just coming and having a good time, because I think everyone who comes here, by coming here, they're kind of making a statement and saying that they care.
One amazing thing about places like community gardens that I feel the Secret Garden does quite offer is a place for networking. So many students come around here, and non-students, and through this you get to meet so many people of different backgrounds and learn so much.
Everyone is welcome. This is not only for students. We are aiming to get more people involved, children, families, people with disabilities. Everyone is welcome, and we have things for everyone. So whoever wants to come, this is also an open space, so even if we don't have a gardening session at that time, anyone can come and just enjoy nature.
Hi, I'm Emma Liddell. I joined a group called Udny Climate Action about 6 months ago, and we decided that it would be a good idea to go and collect some tree seed locally and grow them on for planting in local projects. We hired a local tree expert to take us to Haddow Estate and show us the mature trees that were growing seed at that time, and he showed us how to collect them and gave us a little bit of information about how we should plant them, and we ended up with these ones that you can see here. And it was a real learning process, learning how seeds develop and what you have to do with them to make them grow the best they can. I mean, I didn't know, for example, there were 2 different types of oak tree, and he showed us how to tell the difference between the 2. One of them grows quite tall and straight, and the other one sort of is a little bit more lower and sort of more spread out. During the winter you have to put them in sort of quite gravelly soil to allow them to what's called stratify, and the seeds need to be cold over the winter, and then they germinate usually in the spring. But the oak trees actually send down a root during the winter, and then they start shooting in the spring. So these are the oak trees here. This is a common oak, and then we've got crabapple, silver birch, rowan, a nice tree called a wild service tree. We've got an elder and a hazel. We've got some field maples as well, and some Scots pines. Some of the seeds take longer than 1 winter to stratify, so the rest are just being saved in pots until hopefully next spring they might start growing. I mean, I think planting trees is a really easy thing to do. Just go out in the autumn and find what you think looks like a seed and put it in the soil and see what happens. I mean, it's great fun, and it'd be brilliant to do with your kids. And what a legacy. You could end up planting a tree that might last a couple of 100 years and support all the wildlife and everything that goes along with it. People can get involved by looking out on Facebook for our posts, usually through the UCA, for our tree seed collections in the autumn, and the schools can get involved by planting the seeds and potting on the little seedlings. And then there'll be projects where we're actually planting the trees out into their final planting places as well. So they hopefully will be getting people involved at all of these different stages.
Hi, I'm Sophie Ellis. I'm one of the parents at the Udny Green School. The school's been running a gardening project ever since my son started here. He's now in primary 6, and we've been growing vegetables and flowers on site, and sometimes using the castle gardens. But a few years ago we did have a little bottle greenhouse here, but over the years it became dilapidated. It was just made of plastic bottles. So we decided to raise some funds, and we got some help from the Udny Trust as well, and from Eat on the Green as well. And we raised the funds, and we've built this amazing polytunnel. Well, we're hoping that down the line, and obviously we've just started, we've got a small amount here, but we're still hoping that in the future we'll have more and more produce, and we'll be able to have little markets, like small farmers markets that we can run from the school. We can invite the community in. So we sometimes do community cafes in the school as well, where we would sell things, or we would do some home bakes as well. I mean, beetroots, for example, are made into chocolate brownies at this school, which are absolutely delicious. So the kids can get involved in making those and selling them just to raise funds for the school, and it's helping the community as well.
So you should plant the seed, then the shoot should come up, and you keep adding soil on, and then a purple flower or white should come up, and then once it dies off, it means the tatty's ready to pick.
And if you see any long ones, then
That's where
baby ones grow.
Yes.
When strawberries are ready, they're bright red like my one. And if you ever see a strawberry that's green, never pick it.
Some of them have little courgettes on them, and they're starting to get bigger, and there's still some flowers on them, which will become courgettes as well. And they're getting quite big. Well, apparently you can eat the flowers.
It was a little disc thingy made of compost, and then we mixed it up in water and put a seed in it, and then it became just normal mud. And then when we put the seed in it, after a very long time, a little sprout came out, and then it made leaves. The pumpkins, you might think the pumpkins would be orange, but some of them are blue. And white, and there's little tiny ones as well.
In our polytunnel, we've got chives, rosemary, and oregano and all that. And the chives taste nice because I ate one earlier and tasty. And we've also got coriander. It's nice to put on curries and stuff. So yeah. And there'll hopefully be more herbs growing, and we get to pick them and put them on food, so they'll be tasty. Oh, we're also growing herbs for Unley Green just down there. Well, Eating the Green just down there. And we're gonna help him get some flavour in his foods and stuff.
The project that is Udny Community Trust is a really wide-ranging project. It's Yvonne MacLeod, and I'm the Development Officer with Udny Community Trust in Pitmedden. It's difficult to pin down one thing, but the overall ethos of the whole thing is that Udny Community Trust exists to help the community of Udny to develop. We're based on the wind turbine. Udny Community Wind Turbine Company is our subsidiary company, and it is our main source of funding. So our founding ethos is based on renewables and the environmental agenda. But what it also allows us to do is support other groups who have the same overall goals in mind. Whatever we do here is led by the community. Sometimes it's just a random off-the-cuff remark that'll lead to a really interesting project, such as our potatoes. We have a volunteer who comes along regularly, Wally, who's a very good gardener. So we just randomly said to him one day, wouldn't it be a good idea if you grew some vegetables in the garden? So he did. And that's one of the projects that's really taken off and caught people's imagination. It gets a lot of attention and it brings a lot of joy to folk as they come past and see what he's doing. One of the things that we have recently put in is this cycle shelter, which we managed to get through a project with Cycle UK. We have a cycle shelter, we have secure, safe storage for your bike if you want to park and go for a wander, or if you want to come in and use our community cafe, there's somewhere to keep your bike. Also, we have a cycle maintenance stand and a bike pump. Puncture, sort your bike out and on your way without it being a big disaster. One of the main things that we've been surprised about, the facility that we've got here is starting to be used by people who need a space to be warm and to meet friends, and just as a focus point for people to come and meet. We opened the room that we call the Quarry Room. It's a big multi-use community space at the end of October last year, and then fairly quickly were hit by Storm Irwin, and we strangely did not lose our power, despite the fact that almost half the village lost their power for over a week, and surrounding areas were out of power, some of them for 10 days. So we were able to open our doors and just offer a warm, safe place for people to come and spend a bit of time in really difficult circumstances, and it was really nice to be able to do that. Other things that we do are mainly now based around our new building, which we bought at the start of 2020, just before the pandemic, and since then we've been developing it slowly over time, mostly using volunteer labour and local tradespeople. We're almost finished developing it, but I think it might be one of those jobs that goes on indefinitely. As new ideas and new people come along and have their own thoughts about how it should develop. We have accommodation for groups who want to come and use the space for their own ideas. We have a partnership with the local first responders. We have partnerships with mental health charities, Aberdeenshire Council, the Grampian Health and Wellbeing Partnerships. Various different organisations are starting to use our space. So if you would like to use the space, come and see us and we would be happy to talk.
I'm George Allen, Chair of Udny Climate Action. Udny Climate Action was formed about 4 years ago to take forward some of the initiatives that are already taken place in the parish over the previous few years. The purpose of our organisation is to support the people in the parish in Pitmed and Udny Green, Hatton Crook and the surrounding area to try to address climate issues and reduce carbon use across the area. We produced a booklet, Our Future Homes, which was widely circulated within the parish and within Daviot and is available online, which addresses two issues. One, how to move forward in improving insulation and reducing heat loss in homes, and what heat pumps involve and what people can expect if they are thinking of introducing heat pumps to their homes. And we're hoping to build on the booklet, and we're looking with our colleagues in Zero Carbon Daviot and others within the wider NESCAN family at launching an actual organisation which would support people through the whole process of retrofit and improving the fabric of their houses. So that's really one of our big challenges for the coming year. Basically, the clever thing about heat pumps is that they need some energy to run, so they run on electricity. But what they do is produce considerably more energy in terms of heat than the energy put in as electricity to run them. It was very easy to install this. There is some pipe work and gadgets within the house, and there is a hot water tank, but it all fitted into the existing airing cupboard. And it was very smooth and easy to install. Obviously a ground source heat pump entails a bit more because you're either putting pipes in under your ground or putting in a borehole. But basically it's pretty easy to install. What is important is that the insulation of a house needs to be considered before installing a heat pump. Heat pumps operate at lower temperatures than, say, gas or oil heating. So you do need larger radiators, though they're actually, once you've got them in, you hardly notice that they're larger than what you had before. But if a house leaks a lot of energy, a lot of heat, there is a risk that a heat pump won't keep up with the heat loss. So it's important to have an assessment of the heat loss and the insulation of the house to make sure that you're installing a system that doesn't in fact cost more to run than your existing system. And that's why it's important for houses that have poor insulation to be retrofitted.
Hi, I'm Vicky Janetta. I'm a mum of 4, I live in Pitmedden, and I currently help out the Udny Climate Action Group, and I sort of deal with the zero waste side of things. My role is all about, trying to help the environment by trying not to waste anything and assisting anybody in the community that I can with whatever wee project or problem might be occurring at that time. For us, this is a lifestyle change. It's about caring about, your environment, the natural world, the impact you have on the environment. Big change, we found a refill shop in Ellen, so you take along your own containers, bottles, bags, and you just refill things. So there's just a lot now that we scale things right back. So, we bought a soap bar, and that's shampoo for washing your hands, everything. So we don't have all these containers anymore. We use vinegar to wipe down the worktops and cleaning. So we really did have a big look at our lifestyle. And I think what people need to get is that link between buying that plastic bottle of, liquid in the shop to, where is that going to end up? What is the impact of that? And maybe if people can see that link, likely it's going to end up in the ocean or it's going to end up in Malaysia being burned, they might then maybe think twice. But for us, a big lifestyle change on how we shop and what we purchase and where we purchase as well.
My name is Mark Morgan. Stella's Voice, we are a charity that works and aims to stop and prevent youngsters from being trafficked in Eastern Europe. We work to protect the world's vulnerable from trafficking. When a youngster is vulnerable, doesn't have a means of shelter or provision, they're at high risk of being exploited and trafficked. Locally, our aim is to be a source of help and hope at home and abroad. All the items that we collect, whether we pick them up or people bring them to us, we repurpose them in some way, and that's how we generate the income for what we do. So the items that we take in are very diverse. Over the years we've had some extraordinary items, everything from trampolines, bouncy castles, canoes, and pretty much anything weird and wonderful. The phrase I often use is, as long as it's within the bounds of law, and legal, we'll take it in, and if we can use it in some way, we will. We didn't used to take electrical items in. We never took them because there's a lot of rules and processes around it, but we kept getting offered so many of them. So we started looking into it, and a couple of years ago we started up an electricals project basically. We will put it through a function test, or PAT test first, function test. And when it's a function test, that's a washing machine plumbed in and run through a cycle. But we've got people that'll replace the bushes on motors, or can, if one machine is beyond use, we'll cannibalize the parts and make another one usable. So there's a lot going on there, and again it puts us in a position to help a lot of people, but again, and also reduce that impact on the environment. Bicycles is something we're keen about, and that's probably because I myself am a cyclist and I always have been. So there's an interest there personally, but also Aberdeenshire and Aberdeen City has got one of the worst bike reuse records in Scotland, and we're looking to change that and fix it. But not just change it and fix it so we can have a different headline. So we take in hundreds of bikes a year already, looking to increase that significantly. And there's several things we do with that. One of the things we do, we work with another local charity in the northeast. They take some of the bikes from us and use it for their training purposes, give us the bikes back. They then go on a truck and we'll send them across to Moldova. So kids that have no access to things, in orphanages and some of the kids that we look after, they've got a bike for the first time in their life, for example. But also locally, we're looking to set up a project that basically will train people in the basics that have been lost, how to fix a puncture, how to set up a bike properly and service it and so on and so forth. So there's an education element there, but also it gives people that maybe don't have the means to go out and buy a new bike, they can do so. So beyond the physical items that we take and reuse as much as we can and recycle, so we're currently in the very early stages of developing a market garden on site. Quite a large field that we are looking to create a community growing space. Already we have a small wormery that's under kind of pilot stages, I would guess, but one of the things there is producing high quality compost. But it's a space that we see, the kind of blue sky plan is that you'll have an environment with no dig beds, raised beds, accessible beds, polytunnels, just a mix of growing environments, but at a learning space. Schools, colleges and groups can come along and take part, almost take ownership of some elements of it, producing locally grown food. We've all seen in recent times the impact of when disruption, because our food travels so far. We're looking to change some of that. Built around where the market garden is going, we've recently had paths installed that link up to the old railway line, which is a cycle and a walkway. So now people can cycle and walk down the side of where the market garden is. There's benches where you can sit and stop. And so it's about encouraging, get out there, get some exercise and be part of the environment and mesh with it, not fighting against it. And so we're just, again, layers of benefit that we can create whenever we're doing something, helping people, helping the environment. That's what we're about. We're all fundamentally the same thing. If somebody is struggling and help doesn't come soon enough and they're not able to help themselves, it's a downward spiral. And the quicker you interject and stop that, the quicker you stop other issues becoming dominant. And so if you can connect somebody to purpose, and you can connect the environment and all these activities, and again I say to people, whether you're talking about preventing trafficking or whether you're talking about fixing the environment, if I came to you as an individual and says, can you stop this? You'd go, I don't even know where to start, it's too big. But if I came to you and said, right, what part can you do? Well, can you do this? Can you do that? Well, I can do that. And if everybody did that, that's how we fix this. It's that simple.
I'm Kate Pangborn. Our group name is Action for Climate and Environment Newborough. We had lots of Zoom meetings during lockdown, as I'm sure lots of people did, out of which all of our ideas came to the surface, and as part of that we wanted to be doing something practical that the community in the village could see and join in, and that's where the tree planting came from. Well, this site is just one sort of visible output from what we've been doing, and we have future plans as well. We are about to launch a slightly bigger community consultation. We're only a small group, there's a limit to how much we can do it all at one time, so we need the community's help to tell us what they would like us to focus on, and so where we can have the biggest impact in the short term.
I'm Kate Redpath, currently a development officer with the Mar Area Partnership. The community garden started here in Tarland in 2013. The idea was that a housing estate would be built on the field, and part of the housing estate would be set aside for allotments for the smaller properties on the estate that wouldn't have gardens attached to the property. We came up with this idea that it would benefit more people if we could do a different kind of scheme. So what we have here is basically a mini allotment scheme where people can rent raised beds, either in the polytunnel, outside, or both. We have a lot of people in the garden who are beginners, and then other people who've been gardening for their whole lives. And the knowledge transfer is just a delight to see.
My name is Ana Peña del Valle, and I am the current trustee in charge for the community garden. So the community garden has opened an opportunity for people to improve their knowledge and skills for growing food all the year round. So skills, knowledge, and also the protection that the polytunnel provides is increasing the adaptive capacity of people to current climate change.
My name is Paul Middlemiss. I eat chard and I eat my curly kale pretty much every day. So I consider myself both healthy and exceptionally blessed.
Cremar Food Waste Project, which I guess grew out of an alliance between our local climate action group, it's called Tarland Climate Crisis Group, and the development trust here in Tarland called Tarland Development Group. Some of our food is fresh, good food that would otherwise go to waste. A lot of our food has been tins and packets. We've needed to help people be imaginative sometimes about how they use our tins and packets. So we have engaged people with cooking, we've given out recipes, we've had occasional cooking events locally, and we've shared soup made out of waste food at some of our fun events as well.
Like all these pensioners maybe on a small budget, and maybe young families that can their own benefit or something like that.
Big part of what we do is not only provide food to people, but connecting with those people. We get to know them, they're our neighbors, they're our friends, so we bring our friends, we bring our neighbors. And here in Tarland, it's so convenient because it's right in the heart of town, and in the end we all feel better because we're all helping one another. And I would add that there's a lot of people who need help today who will be helping me tomorrow, so that makes it extra special as well.
So it's built out of a need to support our communities, particularly those who are struggling to get food on the table, but also those who just care about waste and want to be involved in reducing waste. The volunteers have just been fantastic. We've increased our numbers of volunteers and we'll need to keep doing that. And I think we'll have to keep it going through summer, although we all kind of like a break. But as you saw today, people come and fill bags and need our food, I think.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Knowles. I'm the Director of Stock-Free Farming. Stock-free farming basically means farming without livestock, without farmed animals. It's a no-brainer for us. So I think if we're serious about being climate change activists, if we're serious about mitigating climate change, we have no reason not to move away from animal products entirely. We are at Robert and Michelle Sullivan's farm called the Artisan Grower. They're featured on our website, so the reason we feature them is to show other farmers and crofters that it is possible to grow healthy, nutritious food without any animal inputs and without using harmful agrochemicals.
So my name is Robert Sullivan. As a couple, that's myself and my wife, Michelle. We have had no farming experience, no growing experience. Our backgrounds are not in that at all. We decided to move up to Scotland, and we have a growing family, and we just wanted to have a quieter pace of life. Since moving up, we had to look into new occupations, and that's how we were led to agriculture. We were reading a little book, it was called Country Living, and it was painting this picturesque view of you know, kids running in the fields, and you know, the husband getting his hands dirty in the mud, in the soil, and growing. And we just fell in love with that idea. Having said that, there's been lots of research, because obviously we had to start everything from scratch, so we had to get lots of books, lots of YouTube videos, just speaking to different farmers. But the more we looked at organic, we thought, well, why can't we go a step further? Because within organic growing, they do use animal inputs, and I didn't fancy the idea. For a lot of the times when it comes to the fertilization and other things, everything's based on, you know, on your NPK ratings. And so I started looking at other inputs that you could use that were natural, that could give you the same, if not more. We're on 10 acres of land. We haven't yet even reached an acre yet, and at the moment now we're providing quite a lot of harvest every single week. Well, literally a van full of, I'll call it veg. Our produce goes out to clients every single week. Actually, 2 vanfuls.
So at Stock Free Farming, we help farmers come up with transition plans and help them find the funding to put these plans into action. And we offer broadly sort of 3 roads to stock free farming. And the 3 roads are firstly growing crops for human consumption if you've got the kind of land that can support that. And not all Scottish farmers do. For example, 86% of Scottish farmland is classed as less favoured areas. And in these areas, it's very hard, challenging, if not impossible, to grow food. So the second option that we offer is being paid actually to farm carbon capture by helping the native ecosystem to restore, because we know many of these permanent pastures and rough grazing areas were once temperate rainforest and peat bog. So that's the second option. Firstly, growing crops for human consumption, being paid to farm carbon capture by helping native ecosystems to restore. And the third one is diversifying into non-traditional agricultural initiatives, which could be to do with tourism, renewable energy, retail. So we're here at Balnamoon where Jasmine is doing all 3 of these roads to stock free farming, just in the old crofting tradition of doing a little bit of everything to make a living.
I think the thing at the moment is it's very poignant because food resources in general are becoming really expensive, and they're just going to get more and more expensive as well. I've just got a bit of space to do it, and I'm not saying you need a big space to do these things necessarily. I think if people were to work together at the likes of Balnamoon Croft and create a community of growers, then the cost of things would become next to nothing. And the thing is as well, you can make your own compost, you can make everything, as long as, you know, it's just a little bit of not necessarily all that hard work, especially if it's a small space and you're sharing the effort, you know, to do it as well. Then it is achievable to eat British plants for a year, because it's just forward planning, thinking about things differently, you know. It's not an instant fix with food necessarily, but you can plan it, you learn how to do it, you fall into it the more you do it, you know. It's almost like you need a disaster for these things to happen, you know, to bring these things to light, you know.
So my name's Sue Patterson. I'm part of an organisation called Deeside Can, run by volunteers. We're based in Banchory, Torfins and Crathis. CAN stands for Climate Action Network, but it also stands for Care and Nurture. And it's care and nurture for our community, our environment and our planet. So we have 3 areas of focus. We are working to reduce our carbon footprint so that minimises the impact of climate change. We're working to reduce biodiversity loss. There's a catastrophic loss of insects and birds and mammals, and we're trying to reverse that. The main reason the numbers are going down is not just climate change, but it's also loss of habitat. So we're trying to improve the habitat for wildlife in our villages and towns. And the third thing we're focusing on is reducing waste. Not just food waste, but we're encouraging people to recycle and upcycle. We really believe we can do something about this, but it will take everyone to do their little bit every day. And I'm sure that we will make a difference, but it takes everyone.
So my name is Morag Leeper. I've been involved with Deeside Can. We've got about 30 to 36 volunteers. What the volunteers do is they go around 3 evenings a week at the moment and collect the surplus from the local supermarkets, bring it here to number 1. It gets put away in the fridge and on the shelves, and then the following morning it's shared out with the public. And the purpose of it is to reduce waste. On one hand, we're looking at food waste, and we're looking at creating a couple of programs to do with how to use things like cauliflower leaves, how to cook your whole foods. We're also looking at doing workshops around preserving food. So we have more people coming and making use of the surplus that's here. Very much it's not about poverty or food consciousness, it's about reducing the waste that goes to landfill sites. I was talking with a group of the volunteers a few weeks ago and saying, well, you know, let's do a skill share. That's one of the things that we want to do, is a skill share of how do we reduce waste. So what we decided to do was to do a skill share of making bunting, because it covers basics of how to thread a sewing machine, how to sew by hand if you prefer, and although bunting is relatively simple, you can do it so it's two-sided. There's a whole wealth of skills within that. Doing something that's good and useful and helpful in terms of the environment and reducing surplus. It's the social aspect, it's that building community which is having a really big impact.
So the Loch Leys Nature Reserve lies to the north of Banchory. It extends over quite an area, all the way up to the base of the hill of Banchory. The core of it is an old loch. There's several of them on Deeside, but this loch's been drained. It got drained back in the 1850s or thereabouts. And since then it's really kind of turned into a swamp or a mire. Historically it's very interesting in that there's a crannog, an island, a man-made island in the loch that would have been put there back in 11 or 1200 with stones carried out into the middle of the loch and put down, presumably by the local peasants, as a place that the laird in those days would have lived in at least. Nowadays it's got drained back in 1850 and as I said, it's turned into swamp, but it is a fantastic place for biodiversity around Banchory. Many people associate Banchory with the River Dee. I tend to think of the Loch Leys because the River Dee is just a river. There's many rivers like it. There's not very many places like the Loch Leys. Coming here most weeks. Recently I've started trapping the insects and looking to see what's here on the insect side, but bird-wise very interesting, plant-wise very interesting. There's a climate loss going on, but a lesser known is the amount of nature being lost, biodiversity loss called in the technical term. This is a local nature conservation site. We're very interested in maintaining it like that and understanding how much of that biodiversity is here and making sure that no actions happen that's lost. That doesn't just apply to here. This is a hot spot, but it applies right through the village, right through the area in fact. So the wildlife friendly village is part of that biodiversity issue. The wild gardens, part of that too. So this is just one aspect of that side of the biodiversity work we're doing. Being so close to town, it's quite surprising that not many people come here to visit it. The paths at the moment are a little bit difficult, so not very good for wider access, but there's plenty of dog walkers come along. And I would certainly encourage people to come and enjoy the space we're in. It's a shame for everyone to go along the river. Why not come here as well?
We've got 300 trees here ready for the Banchory Wee Forest project. So the idea is we'll get these trees and hopefully this autumn 22, we'll plant them in the Belfield Park, and we're going to get probably maybe a couple of hundred more, so we'll have 500 trees. We'll need lots of people to come and help to plant the trees, and so we get people involved planting the trees, and we'll need to fence them in so that they're safe from deer and wherever else might be roaming around the park.
Hi, I'm Richard Oren. I'm one of the members of Deeside Climate Action Network, and here is our area where our wee forest will be growing. An agreed location for it after discussion with other stakeholders, including the Banchory Show, the Flyball Club and others who use this part of the park. This is the bit of the area which is the least useful to others but really useful for us. It will be a kidney-shaped area of trees with a seat in the focus looking south, and these trees will grow quickly and capture carbon, will provide a very biodiverse habitat for insects, bird life, etc. It will take us a few years to make it look like a forest, but we want to get started, and now we have an agreed location. We're just waiting for the wheels to turn in the council to get us the legal permission to plant in the autumn. We're excited to get it going.
Good morning, and my name is Beatrice Charnley, and welcome to the Belfield Rose Garden in Banchory. So this is the Belfield Rose Garden, and it used to be part of this big building behind us, the Belfield home. First of all, it's a nice place to come and sit and catch your breath. You can look to nature. There's a lot of wildlife. We've got birds and butterflies and bumblebees. We grow food to harvest. It's about also time, you know, planting a seed, using your body. I support people with mental health issues, and I think for me, my way of looking at it and addressing it has been, how can I get people to reinvest into their body? So it's through making, it's through crafting, through using your hands and your senses, right from planting to brushing your hands again, the mint, and smelling, making minty, and harvesting, so we can cook a meal, come and sit down and have a nice conversation. So it's a social connection. It's a reinvestment into your senses. It's making people alive. You know, come and see, open your eyes, open your ears, just have a listen, sit down. How beautiful, you know, the space can be. This is a little snapshot of what can happen when one takes a space that is and was unloved to care and nurture, and then produce something where it feeds your soul, more or less, as well as your tummy. And if anything, I'd like more of it. I think we should all be looking after spaces that are unloved and put something that we can harvest from those spaces and gather together more and celebrate.
So there's a huge amount of work and dialogue and discussion to be had with all the communities of the Northeast about their future, about how we get to net zero, whether that's in new jobs, new infrastructure, communities owning their renewable energy sources or their active travel sites. Communities have a real role to play in this. We need to make this open and inclusive and deliberative, and I see NESCAN as a pivotal role in servicing and working with those communities, and I see our institution, the University of Aberdeen, having a key role in providing that pool of talent, providing that research and those ideas to help support communities achieve real action to protect the planet.